Right, so there's a solution scenario where you say something to end an argument. Okay, no problem, I'll move it next time. In reality, it's not embedded in the person to move it as yet. Hello friends, and welcome back to pill0talk, a place for real stories, honest feelings, and those deep heartfelt conversations that remind us we're all still learning and growing. I'm your host, Alex.
And I am Liz. It's always such a comfort having you here with us. A place to slow down, breathe, and talk about the things that really matter. The struggles, the questions, and those small glimmers of hope that help us keep going.
Whether you've been with us from the start or you're listening for the first time, thank you for being here.
Take a moment to get settled. Maybe you're driving, maybe you're winding down after a long day. Wherever you are, thank you for spending this time with us.
Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, or share your thoughts after this episode.
Your stories and reflections mean a lot to us. They remind us that even though our stories are different, we are walking this journey together.
So today, we're opening about something many people carry quietly, the kind of pain that comes from within the family. Because when the people that you love the most hurt you, holding on to peace and hope can feel almost impossible.
We are discussing, how do you keep hope alive when family conflict feels never ending? When the same issues keep coming up, it can feel like peace is out of reach. But sometimes hope starts by shifting how we see and respond to those moments. We've broken this discussion into 3 main points. We'll start with our first point, recognizing the cycle and choosing peace, not reaction. One thing I've noticed in families is that conflict often repeats itself in patterns. It's the same argument that keep coming up over and over, or the same emotional triggers being pulled, no matter how many times we try to fix things. Alex, why do you think human beings suffer with that? With the constant fights and arguments over the same issue or the same topic?
I believe most times it's a lot related to the issue at hand isn't resolved at the first argument. So whether it be somebody leaving their shoes by the door or something much more major, the issue at hand isn't the person that leaving the shoe by the door all the time creating the argument. The issue is the reason why they leaving the shoe by the door, and they probably believe that they should keep it there, while someone else saying that it should be put in another place. There's a simple example of a small argument, but it could constantly come up during the months, and the main thing is that there isn't a resolve for the issue. That's one of the major things, I think.
But why wouldn't there be a resolve? After the first argument, when people are finished arguing, don't they resolve something? Don't they come up with a solution?
Right, so there's a solution scenario where you say something to end an argument. Okay, no problem, I'll move it next time. In reality, it's not embedded in the person to move it as yet. So, for example, if it's a habit that is being constantly done all the time and the argument comes up now, then yes, the person says, okay, they'll move it, and they have probably good intentions to move it. But as soon as another incident occurs, it's because not thinking about the slippers or shoes, whatever, being left by the door, they just rest it there and they move on with life, and then the other person sees it and the argument starts up again. So the real question is habit. So if there's a habit from one person, and like I'm saying, this is a very simplistic term of major issues that occur. You have the habit of leaving the slipper there and it's an issue and it's an argument and whatnot, then if you agree that the slipper should be there, then there's a whole different discussion. If you say that you're going to move the slipper and you're going to put it there, then you have to recognize that you have a habit that you have to try to break, and you'd have to start to implement different ways of breaking that habit in order to end the argument.
So then would it be a fair judgment to say lack of communication? Because in an argument, both parties are trying to be heard but not listening. But with communication, there is the call for one to listen and one to speak, and vice versa. So would you say that most arguments don't get resolved because of the lack of proper communication?
Yes, I would agree to that. Lack of proper communication definitely is the main reason, the core of most arguments. And a lot of people lack communication, and it could be within themselves. They don't know that they have that habit, so it has to be recognized to communicate, or the other person doesn't see it as a habit. The other person is seeing it as, you have to be doing this just for spite. And both parties not communicating on what their side of the issue is. And once they don't have that communication, then it keeps blowing up bigger and bigger and bigger, with the person thinking negatively or differently about the entire situation on both sides. So communication is very important. Agreed.
What tiny advice can you give our beautiful listeners on a basic skill for the first steps of proper communication?
In proper communication, our first basic step is when you self-reflect. So whatever it is that you have an issue with, as soon as you recognize that, okay, the problem is the person leaving the slippers there, then you self-reflect and start off with the reason of why is it bothering you that the slipper is there, first of all. Secondly, why do you think he or she is leaving the slippers by the door? And that question is, do you know the reason why the person is leaving the slippers there? Or is it in your head? And once you have to assume, guess, and put things together and say this is the reason why, then there is no communication when you make assumptions. You have to talk it out. You have to figure out the root cause, and the only way is through the other person that you're talking to, whichever family member causing this eruption in the house.
That brings me thinking of our previous discussion where I went through that, where I felt like I was not on the same page or book with you and everything was spiraling out of control to me. But that happened because I was not communicating properly to you. And so when my point of view shifted, when the way I looked at things shifted, when I took time to listen to what you said and see it from your side, everything came clearer. Everything was understood. A true resolution was formed. I like that.
Sometimes hope looks like staying quiet instead of fighting back. Not because you've given up, but because you've decided peace matters more than being right.
I know some people may not agree with that statement, but it calls for deeper reflection. It doesn't mean that you're giving up, but you prefer to have your peace until the other person, I think, reaches your level of understanding and point of view. Because sometimes you can shift your point of view to see from the other person's perspective, but they have not reached that level in their development as yet. So therefore, rather than continuing the fight, you just take a little peace, take a little break. Would you say?
Yes, because sometimes when you communicate with someone, you also have to know right time and place. So a lot of times in a heated conversation, when arguments, everybody according to Caribbean blood hot, we basically what happens is you then look at the scenario, realize that this person is way too angry. Anything you say is a negative. You take a note of the situation, you be peaceful, wait for another opportunity in order to come out and discuss it when everybody is back on a level head. Because arguing back and forth makes no sense if there isn't any changes or any point that either party is accepting. I think that's important.
So then I like that, because now it jogs my memory of so many people. First thing they do in an argument is put up a defensive wall. And once that defensive wall is up, nothing gets past. So even though what the other person is saying might make 100% sense, it's not getting through to me because my wall is up. How do you help someone who jumps from being my calm, loving sister to the minute we disagree with something, she turns into Hulk and this huge wall goes up? How do I reach someone like that?
Well, one of the first things you start to observe with that family member is you look at what are the triggers. So you know that when this occurs, then Hulk starts to get angry. So when you look at those things and you see what those triggers are, then when it's time to communicate, you learn how to communicate to that person without hitting these little mines that may explode and turn the conversation upside down. So you take that approach, you look at it, and once you do that more often, then those protective walls that come up, they mainly come up as a defensive wall. It automatically triggers defense and the person goes into Hulk mode, like you said. So to avoid the wall, you communicate without hitting those triggers, without hitting those landmines as best as possible. And if you do cross it and you're noticing that the wall is coming up, you could apologize, you could backpedal, you could pause right there, recognize a mistake that you're saying, or state that that's not what I said, or that's not what you meant, and you want to repeat the same statement a different manner because you realize you hit a trigger, and you're trying to do this not to end the conversations, so that you could communicate straight to the point. Once you all reach a point and you all get a resolve, then Hulk, not turning into Hulk, stays your nice, wonderful sister, and both of you all grow from that scenario. That is one of the best moves.
Yeah, because not all the time saying sorry means that you're wrong. Sometimes saying sorry just means you realize, okay, this is not the point where she's going to understand me. So I pushed too far. It doesn't always mean that my point is wrong. Would that be a correct statement to say?
Definitely.
It's just my approach might be wrong, but not my point. Exactly. So my lovely listeners, it is fine to say sorry. Forgiveness is one of God's beautiful gifts He gave to us. Our second point, redefining connection, loving from a distance.
Maintaining hope doesn't always mean keeping close contact. Some relationships need space to heal. You can love someone deeply and still protect your peace.
Love someone deeply and still protect your peace. Relationships need space to heal. Do you agree with that statement? Relationships need a little space to heal?
Yes, definitely. Relationships, depending on the situation and what both persons are going through, you have to know when one party needs space or the other needs space. Because if it's a battle and it's a push and it's a constant nagging situation, then you know there's two options. There's one, the person is continuing because they're being pushed, and without that space to heal, then each time that they continue, the issue is being built up in the background over and over and over, because the person didn't get time to get space, go in a corner, have peace, think, properly reflect, and then come back to the situation. It could just be growing and growing and growing, and like we just said, that Hulk comes out at some point, and some people could leave that Hulk to build up for 5 years, and then all of a sudden after 5 years there's a whole different person that come out, and you confused, wondering where that person or who that person is. This person not like this. I know this person was never like this. But if you look at all what was taking place for over the years, and how much the person was taken on over and over and over, and they didn't get that space to self-reflect and heal and whatnot, then it will blow out of proportion. Hence the reason why that communication is very important.
I'm not going to say that, because I know, ladies, you're gonna disagree with me saying this, but many of us ladies, we have a very high tolerance level, and while that is beautiful, it's also a curse, because it shows that we can keep things inside, and that is what makes that tiny anthill into this huge mountain. And so with proper communication skills, sitting down and talking and listening to your partner, listening to your sister, listening to your brother, or even your mother and father, it can help not make that anthill into a mountain. Because it's something I've learned from being married to my beautiful husband here. And I've learned this from him because he taught me my communication skills. If something bothers you now that I did, please come and tell me now. But the thing with the other person who says that means they have to sit down and actually listen and not get defensive. Because sometimes the things that someone does for us and they think they're doing it out of love, and it's actually something that we don't like or it hurt us, they don't want to hear that it hurt us. So the person who is listening, you have to please picture it as a neutral ground. Sit and just listen. And so my husband and I have adapted that beautiful communication skill, which helps our relationship to blossom so well, where if he does something that I was not pleased about or that hurt me, I tell it to him. And then we will talk about it, because he would not just leave it there. He would want to know why. Why did that hurt you? Because like he said earlier, I'm not going to change something about anything unless I understand why. We're not going to go and buy any old car without understanding how it works. So you always want to know the why. And it's okay for people to ask you why. Just give an example, being honest and being communicative is two beautiful things all relationship needs. All relationships. And so I love that about my relationship with my husband.
And one of the other things is, when you try to get to the why, don't be scared realizing that you yourself may not know why. That is something that occurs when you're having discussions and you dig into the reason why this is an issue. You may not know why it's bothering you this much, but it opens up the communication where you all can dig into a reason why that reason why it is occurring. Because some things occur where something may bother you, and when you dig into it, then you could realize that it may have been trauma from a past relationship or something in relation to the reason why this is such a bother and this is such a trigger. Yeah.
Could even be a childhood trauma that you don't remember instantly, but it's in your long-term memory. You just don't remember it in the forefront.
That's correct. I agree with that. And even when you get that space, you get that quiet, and you either give that space to someone to heal, or you take that space for yourself to heal. That space creates that self-reflection. When you get quiet and you're on your own and you look at yourself in the mirror, you start self-reflecting. And once you start self-reflecting, you see things differently. And once you're there, that's not from the pain, that's from growth. That's where you'd grow into your better self for both sides.
And that brought us into our third point of healing in your own growth. Having hope is the idea that even if the conflict never fully resolves, you can still heal, evolve, and live with peace. And like Alex just said, once you take time and self-reflect, which is something not many people do, but it is something that will help you to heal. Once you take that time for yourself, you will see the healing, and you will see a more beautiful you. You're already beautiful because God makes no mistakes, so everybody is beautiful. But you would see an even more beautiful you once you start to reflect and allow the healing to happen.
Once you let that growth occur inside of you and you take away that idea of blaming the other party or parties, that is true personal growth. It's focusing more on that than putting a blame on someone because they are the root of your issues and they are the one that causing you to get angry and whatever the situation is. No one on the planet can make you angry. There's nothing, and no one or no item, no situation can make you angry. The only way to get angry is you yourself get yourself angry. It's the only way to do it. So if you get your growth and you move on and you realize that for yourself, that the only thing that gets you angry in a situation is yourself, then you realize how much power you have over yourself. All these other situations and people or things or relationships that is your triggers are really triggers. Why we call it a trigger is because it triggers yourself to get angry, yourself to do these things. If you're going through your growth and you recognize that these are your triggers and these are the things that getting you angry, and you know that you're saying angry, then you can also choose not to be angry. You have no reason to be angry. It's something occurred and you don't have to get angry. You could think of this situation, you could think for a solution. You have no reason to get angry. And that is something I think people should take to heart.
That's a very hard thing for people to do. My alien husband, he is an alien. I call him that all the time. But it is true in what he's saying, because there's something I like to say. When you allow someone to make you that upset, to make you that depressed, to make you that angry, you are giving your power to them. Please stop giving your power away. Your power is yours. The only person that can give and take power from you is God. Other than that, it's you. You give yourself power and you can take away your own power. That ties in a lot with fear, because we are afraid of, many people live in this society where they're afraid of what other people will think or say about them. Okay, that's their opinion, because at the end of the day, we all have freedom of speech and we all have our own opinions. But don't give people your power. Don't give them that. That's a big thing you're giving to them when you allow yourself to get angry over something they did. So we really, really want you all to try to communicate. It's a big, big one.
And just like we said in our previous episode, it's a process. So using different tools for your healing, for your change of perspective and how you think of the situation, you could use different things. We spoke about journaling, there's therapy, there's faith. God is most powerful, most divine. Use these things to make the changes. If you get angry because rain falls, then you can stop getting angry because rain falls. How? By journaling, by therapy, by faith within God. Find the tools that works for you, and you can change that in yourself. I know my wife likes to call me an alien, but point being is the only way I am like this is because I've seen situations and scenarios that occurred and I've decided not to, and that is based on the self-reflecting. That's based on using tools, that's based on the faith, knowing that at the end of the day, God is the most almighty and there's nothing more important than him. So this is advice I'd like to give to you guys.
Oh, and I know there is, for us Christians, especially us Catholics, and we grew up with this notion that we must put ourselves last in everything. And in our conversations, we are telling you to put yourself first. That does not in any way mean you are selfish. Because if you do not love you how can anybody else love you? How can you love anybody else? It has to start with yourself. That is not selfishness. That is actually very far from selfish. That is selflessness. Because if I want to love my daughter and love my husband, I want to love my mother and father, I want to love my brother and sister and my friends, I need to learn for myself what love is for me first. If I don't know what love is for me, how can I give it to somebody else? If I don't love me, how do I expect someone to love me? I don't know what to expect because I don't do it for myself. So it's actually not selfish. So we need to break that ugly notion that it is a selfish thing to put you first in this context. It is not. Selfishness occurs when you hurt others for your own gain. That is selfishness. But you loving yourself is not hurting anybody. So please, my darlings, love yourself.
And that is very, very important. You just reminded me that is one of the major reasons why people get that angry in a relationship. When someone ends a relationship and you're angry because they cheat on you or they do whatever it is. If you love yourself, then most times when you truly love yourself, then the first thought in your mind is that you don't want to put yourself in a situation where they treat you like this. And take that to heart, because a lot of people look for love within other things. So for example, they feel love, the only way that they understand love is when people around them love them. And then this notion of, okay, I am loved, and feel happy and great and grand. But let's say we remove those people out of your life, then that puts you in a situation where you turn bitter and angry or depressed or whatever state of mind. That happens a lot because you seek love elsewhere instead of within yourself. And I'll always state this, that everything around you will fail you, or can fail you, I should say. So the one thing for sure that wouldn't fail is God. So when you love God and you love yourself, because you know God loves you, you love yourself because God created you. Once you are there and you understand that love, then you move on with a life so on a cloud. It's amazing. It's magical.
I agree. And I'm going back to his little example of when people seek love in material things. So you surround yourself with, I would call, artificial friends, because they only love you for what you can give them. Or you only see love in when someone gives you a huge bouquet of flowers. But that same someone will go out on a Friday night and have a lime and have some drinks and come home and physically hurt you. That is not love. And if someone told you that is love, that is wrong. That is not love. When you love yourself, no one is going to put their hands on you. Because no, this is me. I love me. Why are you interfering with me? Why are you hurting me?
That's correct. See, what is why self-reflection is important. And we, both of us, also 100% agree that spirituality, life, that self-reflection, that is a bond that is required in you. Once you have that in place, then you can take over the world. You can find your happiness. You find it within yourself, and you move on. And that is where you want to be in life. That's what this discussion is mainly about.
I agree. And this discussion reminds me of another of my very favorite Bible stories. The story of Joseph in Genesis. Joseph was a young boy of 12 children, and he was the youngest. And he was highly blessed and highly favored by his father, and highly blessed by God, because Joseph would have many dreams. And if you know the story of Joseph, his dreams were premonitions. So he would dream of bigger things, bigger than his own reality, bigger than he can even explain. And his brothers were very, very jealous of this. I think mostly because of how they saw that the father favored him over them. So that calls for the jealousy and the betrayal that they gave. And Joseph, they sold their brother into slavery. And well, if you don't know the story, I will ask you to go and read Genesis 37 to 45. Because it's a long story. Joseph is a long story. So chapter 37 to chapter 45 tells you the whole story of Joseph and how his brothers sold him into slavery, and he moved from slavery. He moved through different situations in his life, and in one of his movements, he ended up working for this big emperor or governor of the state, and he was imprisoned for a little bit because of something he did not have control over. But I mean, when you read it, you'll see. But his dreams is what saved his life, because when the emperor had a dream, he needed someone to interpret that dream for him, and Joseph was the only person that could have done it. And of course, when Joseph did it, he put Joseph in charge. And years later, there was a huge famine, and many other little countries had to come to where Joseph was, because Joseph, based on the dream that his boss had, he knew what to do to set things in place for the years that were coming that was awful. And his brothers, his own brothers, who sold him, who was jealous, who betrayed him, his own family, who hurt him so badly, came. Of course, they didn't recognize him first. And so he did little, I'll say, low-key things, the god of mischief. Yes, Joseph did a few mischievous things to get his brothers to recognize that it is him. And only when they did, that the forgiveness that poured out of them, which I think was so beautiful, because again, forgiveness is an amazing gift that God gave us. And yes, our family is the one that hurt us the most. Again, because we allow it, because we so love our family. But forgiveness can break every hurt.
Exactly. There's also a next scripture, Romans 12:12. It says it beautifully. Let your hope keep you joyful. Be patient in your troubles and pray at all times. That's the quiet rhythm of resilience. Joy, patience, prayer.
Let your hope keep you joyful. See, you need to make yourself happy. There's a quote by Christopher Reeve that says, once you choose hope, anything's possible. And he was right. Hope doesn't erase the struggle, but it gives you the strength to walk through it.
Yeah, and wherever you're right now, maybe in the middle of something hard, just pause. Take a deep breath. This moment is not the end of your story. It continues.
We want to leave you with a reflection for this week. What small moments or thoughts help you keep hope alive right now? Maybe it's a quiet sunrise, a child's laughter, or the comfort of knowing tomorrow is still awaiting for you, and it's still a brand new day. Every day is a brand new day to start all over again.
But really think about it. Think about it, write it down, or even better yet, share it with us in the comments, because sometimes your story might be the light that someone else needs to hear in their own way, in their own mind.
And if this episode spoke to your heart, take a second to share it with a friend. Share it with someone you think might need to hear something we said. We started this channel to help others to find happiness the way we did, to spread God's love. Because right now our world is very, very scary.
We're so grateful you're part of this space, this little corner where we keep it honest, gentle, and real.
Until next time, my beautiful soul, hold on to hope, even if it's just a flicker. Thank you.